I'm your host, Tim Wood. Welcome to The Natural You, where we'll be interviewing guests from different backgrounds and all walks of life to discuss our relationship with nature and how we can better connect to the natural world, both in us and around us. Nature already has all the answers we need to be healthier and happier in all aspects of our lives. Listen up to hear how to access more of The Natural You. Destiny was born in California and moved to the UK when she was 12. With a strong urge to serve humanity, she qualified as a chiropractor in 1995. Since then, she's been on a long journey of personal and professional discovery. She now combines vitalistic chiropractic care with her own style of healing in an open-plan environment in Kent, UK. She has spoken about her journey several times at conferences, on podcasts, and on the radio. She also runs events that include meditation, breathwork, cold water immersion, sound baths, and yoga retreats. Listen up to hear how Destiny brought the magic back into her own life and how she makes the supernatural natural. Hey everyone, welcome to The Natural You. Today we've got the wonderful Destiny, my soul sister. Welcome, Destiny.
Hello, Tim. Thank you so much for having me, my brother from another mother.
Cool, man. Thank you. I really wanted to get you onto the podcast because I think you have a really interesting story. And maybe you can just start with your name because that's certainly one that usually attracts attention.
Yeah, I think my name is, well, there's lots and lots of stories about it. And I used to have a very sort of mixed relationship with my name. I do come from hippie parents. My mum got pregnant with me. This is her story anyway. She got pregnant with me quite young and was unsure whether she should keep me or not. And so she went off onto a mountainside. She lived in Northern California at the time and decided to meditate on it and probably smoked a couple little funny cigarettes, which would sort of really answer a few questions about my personality, and just kept getting this voice saying, it's your destiny, it's your destiny, it's your destiny. So she decided to have me, and then the name was Destiny.
Wonderful.
That's the story anyway.
And so the hippie lineage, how was that growing up?
To be honest, my memories are a little bit cagey, but I believe I lived on an Indian reservation for a little time in California. My mum was quite a nomadic person, and we moved all around the States, mostly the sort of western part. And then we moved to the UK when I was 12. And then when we were in the UK, I moved around a lot there. So quite a nomadic sort of upbringing, very sort of idealistic feminist Greenpeace principles in my family. But then my mum, quite a heavy influence because she was a single parent for quite a long time. Dad was a musician, still is. So I had that kind of upbringing, sort of hippie-fied upbringing. And then she did a nursing degree and everything sort of changed after that.
Wow.
And we became a little bit more of a sort of mainstream medicine type. But even then she still, didn't really advocate a lot of medicines and stuff, and pharmaceuticals at that time. But, that sort of shifted everything a little bit for me.
How old were you then?
I think she'd done her degree I must have been about 8 or 9, and then we moved here when I was 12. But then when we moved to the UK, nursing is very different in the UK compared to the US. Like, she had quite a lot of responsibilities there, and here it was more kind of like just cleaning and wiping bums, really. So she didn't like it, so she kind of stopped and then started stained glass artistry and some other sort of more hippie stuff. So yeah, I guess she did kind of revert back to the hippiness once we kind of moved here. But yeah.
And how do you think those values, that nomadic lifestyle, and the kind of hippie, greenie principles, how do you think they influenced your early life and even your choice of career?
Yeah, the choice of career, I think, I had quite an idealistic sort of lifestyle. My philosophies are very sort of humanistic and, I suppose, vitalistic. I always kind of believed in magic. My mum always told me that I was telepathic and sort of magical, and and then I started chiropractic, and I still believed in that magic to a certain point. But as you and I both know, it's not really the inverted commas alternative health that we originally sort of probably signed up to, if you know what I mean. So I kind of went into more of the sort of, I guess, the mechanistic sort of mindset and a bit more of a medical mindset. And I felt like I lost myself a little bit, actually. And I wandered along for a little while, feeling quite kind of confused and a bit lost, really, through that, because I do feel like I had lost my kind of hippie values and my kind of, I don't know, the sort of magic a little bit at that time.
So when you say magic, what does that word mean to you? What does it conjure up for you? Because for different people it can give different sort of ideas. What to you when you say magic? What words and feelings come to you?
So I feel like, when I was younger, I was told that I was special, I suppose, and telepathic, and I used to be able to predict what song was coming on the radio, and I used to see numbers all the time. I'd see 1111, and I just always felt that there was something more that I was capable of, and there was something maybe supernatural about me. I now am realizing, everybody, by the way, it's in all of us. So this isn't just about me being this magical being. We are all magical, and we can create our own realities. And I feel like, why not create the most magical feeling reality that you possibly can?
That's good. Creating our own realities. And so when did you start tapping into that again? That sense of magic and finding yourself leaning out of the sort of more mechanistic practice, as you said, finding your magic. What were there any key things that happened, or was it a gradual process?
Okay, so it's multi-layered, really. We kind of know that time isn't really linear, and a few things happened kind of on top of each other, and 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 also far apart from each other. So originally, when I first moved into the house that I'm living in now, 22 years ago, um, my husband decided that the house was haunted. And at that point, I do feel like
Wow.
I had lost my, I don't know, I'd become very, very grounded and perhaps a little bit kind of
Your
numb.
spidey
I
senses.
had, and I didn't see anything, but he was seeing horrible stuff, and I won't go into that because it's actually probably not the best idea for some of your listeners. It was like they weren't nice. They weren't nice ghosts, basically. And the fact that he was seeing them, and he's like the most sort of grounded person you've ever met, um, kind of made me a bit. I don't know, it made me feel a bit weird. Anyway, sort of fast forward, we didn't really have any kind of religious
So you realized you had lost a touch a little bit with that.
yeah, and I kind of questioned it a little bit, and I thought, why am I not seeing this? I should be seeing this because I'm much more in touch with all of that stuff than he is, and what have you. And it kind of settled out. He stopped talking about it. I don't know whether it freaked him out so much that he just stopped talking about it or what happened. We had no kind of religious sort of sway at that point, so I didn't know whether should we get somebody in to have a priest to clear out the house, or what should we do? I don't know. So I'd kind of lost my sense of what was happening, and then very quickly I fell pregnant with my son. And he was I had an awful pregnancy, and he was a very kind of agitated baby, and I nearly died having him, and it was all traumatic. And at the back of my mind, I was thinking, is this because the house is haunted? And and it was very stressful. Anyway, at different points of after my son was born, I didn't realize, but independently of each other, my husband and I both came into the nursery room and basically asked the ghost, just said, you can all stay here, but just leave the kid alone. Anyway, so that it all settled down. I didn't really see anything. Fast forward 13 years later, 14 years later, and my daughter, who was born a couple of years after my son, is now 13. And she's now 17. She starts having all these horrendous nightmares, and of these sort of people grabbing her and trying to pull her into other dimensions and rooms and all this. And she's a 13-year-old now, is sleeping in her mother and father's bed because she cannot sleep in her room. So I decide, right, we need to do something about this. So I trawl all over Facebook, right, I need to find energy clearing, house clearing, whatever, I need to find something. And this name, Nicola, just kept coming up. So I contacted Nicola. I said, I don't know if you can help me, but I've got this thing going on. But I'll stop there for a minute, because actually before that, I started getting disillusioned with chiropractic, probably about 10 years before that. Started getting disillusioned with chiropractic. I just felt something wasn't right. I was going to work. I felt like it was just manual labor. It was superficial. I might as well be working in a restaurant. I didn't care about it. I was not happy just putting out everyone's back pain fires all the time. I just wasn't happy. So I started a course at NLP, hypnosis, psychoneuroimmunology course, which is basically the power of the mind to heal the body. And this was my home. They talked of the power of the mind to heal the body. They talked of a collective consciousness. They talked about big source entity. They talked about nature, you being part of nature, an integral part of a community, of networked matrix of this beautiful thing that we are. And I just felt like home. So I just was going to give up chiropractic. I was going to be a psychoneuroimmunologist. Say that when you've had a couple of drinks, and that was it. And then I was literally a week before I was going to close my practice, I was introduced to a thing called Chiro Europe, which we're all very I don't know if the listeners will be familiar, but it's a kind of the original chiropractic. The more that chiropractic is a spiritual practice, and it's unleashing our innate intelligence. So all of a sudden, after 20 years of practice and about to give up my license, I found this other way of working, which connected the two. So I started on this journey, but I was kind of locked into a more mechanistic practice, and I was finding it a little bit difficult to find where I was and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, I decided to split the practice from my husband, go off on this different, more of a sort of spiritual journey. And then 18 months later, we had lockdown. But we'll go back to the
we're going to go back to
we're going to go back to the house thing, which happened, I believe, the October before. So October 2018. No, the summer of 2018. Sorry. Anyway, so Nicola comes in and she takes her shoes off and she walks into my house and she says, Destiny, I'm just going to sort of walk around. You can just leave me to it. And I'm just you might hear me sort of saying some funny noises and making some weird sounds and things like that, but just leave me alone and I'll just sort of have a look around. I could not leave this woman alone. I was following her. I was absolutely besotted with this woman. I just couldn't leave her alone. And she started speaking this weird language with all these little gobbledygooky, clicky things and whistly noises and little peeps and stuff. And I started answering her in this weird language.
No way.
And it was just would not stop. I was just automatically just started speaking back to her in this random weird language, and we were having this full conversation for like an hour, talking about the rooms, talking about all these sort of house,
and you could interpret it totally. You knew what she was saying.
I could not. I had no idea. I just know I was pointing to corners and I was pointing to things, and she was answering me and I knew her answers were affirmation answers, but I had no idea what I was saying. So anyway, she leaves after doing whatever, and she says, "Oh, you're like me. You can channel the star people and the galactic people." And I was like, "What?" And I thought, "Oh my God, I've decided. I've spent 40 years trying to sort of like subdue all this hippie weirdness and not be too crazy.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, that's it. I'm going to get sectioned. I'm done. I've lost my marbles. So I'm done." And then after that, I just couldn't shut up. It was just like coming at me all the time, this gobbledygook, and it felt like I was catching up. right? I was catching up from lost time, and I had this purging I needed to do to get to some sort of level. Then I started scribbling and writing and, and drawing things and all this sort of weird stuff. Then I started being quite like weirdly telepathic and weirdly like I was telling people random stuff like, oh, did you have a really nice strawberry cake yesterday? And they'd be, what? And, oh, you've got a cat with a circle on his eye and a bell round his head. Like, oh my God. And I was starting to really scare myself because I couldn't kind of control it so that it wasn't, I was losing people at the office all the time because they were like, oh my God, this crazy, I only came to get my back pain sorted and this crazy woman telling me stuff. Anyway, it started then over lockdown. It started to kind of like calm down a little bit. But
so how long was that sort of? So 28. What's that? 2-3 years?
That's got to be. Well, we're in 23 now, so it's got to be 5 years ago now.
Okay.
And then, but during the time of all the shit show shenanigans, oh sorry I swore there, that people started sort of contacting me. I did sort of meditation circles and things because we were allowed to gather for religious reasons and for sort of educational reasons.
I remember,
so just to, not that I would have anyway,
just tick that box. Yes. We were working within the boundaries of the regs at the time.
The rules, I promise, just in case this goes down in history. It's recorded. So, and then people started, oh, I hear that you're having meditation circles on Fridays. Can I come? Yeah. So I ended up with this group of women who, and occasionally a dude, collecting in the office, and we'd have, little meditation things, and all these women who could speak this weird language too started arriving in my life.
Wow.
And I'd never heard of it before. Anyway, so now I'm rambling, but
so what do you call that language? So
it's called light language. It's the universal language. It now that it started to settle, and now that I think I've done all this purging, and now I've met all these people, and now there is this whole kind of roller coaster process that when I went on, and I believe that those last sort of 20 years, and probably even my whole life, has been like the bow string being pulled back and pulled back, and then that activation of the language, which now is a complete channeling, and I can 100% understand what it is. It's not a linear language. It's like you've read a chapter of a book and you understand what that chapter means. It's not like
and you can interpret it. So you can say the words and then you can interpret it yourself.
So then I can then translate it into English, but it comes down as like a knowing. So it's more of a, I guess it's a channeling that's a knowing, and then I interpret it. So. Yeah.
Wow. And so do you, okay, Chris, a quick question. You mostly women. Are there any guys that have this ability or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I think, I feel like the men who have done more of a sort of a deep work and a deep sort of emotional evolution tend to be the ones that can do it also. I haven't met as many men who can as women, but they are there.
They are there.
They are out there.
No, it's women only.
No. They're out there.
Very interesting. And do you use that?
I also sorry, I'm just going to interrupt very quickly. I often wonder though, because women tend to be much more vocal and have many more words access to them. I do wonder whether the men channel in a way that's more physical, rather than more vocal. So
they'd be perhaps in body work they would be using that and expressing that through their hands and body rather than through voice. So
or art,
so
more music,
more kinesthetic than auditory or visual.
I think so.
Okay, that's interesting.
Possibly, it's just a hypothesis.
A theory of yours, No, it's I think it's very interesting. And do you use that in your work now? And how did you sort of transition from your old way of working, which sounds sort of pain-based, mechanistic as described, into this more sort of spiritual realm? And how did your how did your adjustments or the things you're doing to your patients or clients change during that time? Are they similar? Are they widely different?
Absolutely, 100% completely different. I was working in more of a physio style before, where it's, oh, you have a pain here in your calf, I'll just rub your calf and massage the pain. And I was much more of a symptom chiropractor. So when people came to me and they had some sort of symptom, my intention was to get rid of that symptom for them. And then when I went to Chiro Europe and I met all these people who were their intention was to take away blockages in the nervous system to allow the innate intelligence to flow, and mostly upper neck, which is your brainstem connection to the brain, which will open up the pathway not only to your own healing mechanism, because actually, we are connected to this huge source entity of energy, and that is what is activating or creating that innate intelligence, and that's what's, in my mind, keeping that energy flowing. So if we're blocked, you don't have that full flow. So when I found all these people doing this, I was like, gosh, this is exactly what I've been trying to achieve with the whole psychoneuroimmunology thing. And I can't believe that I can actually, my beloved chiropractic, which I was so disillusioned with, I can now connect and create this whole different way of doing things. And then obviously I put the sort of the destiny sort of icing on that cake with the channeling. So I left the practice that I was with my husband. He stayed mechanistic. It wasn't really his vibe. So I thought I would do everyone a favor and take my weirdness and my banana, because they were all happy doing their thing, they were quite happy doing, in their little thing. And I kept trying to change, but we could do it like this, and this is so much better, and this is the way it should be, and this is the original chiropractic. And I was trying to change everyone, and I think I might have tried that for about 3 years or something, and I just was hitting brick walls, and I eventually decided, no, I've got to leave here and do this thing, because I was busting with frustration. And so the universe brought me this beautiful practice, and literally within a week of again deciding to leave, all of a sudden this beautiful premises, it's not that beautiful, but it's my beautiful thing,
it's beautiful
came
practice.
up. And it was perfect, this massive open plan studio type thing. So I have everyone in there, we have a group energy going on. I'm only adjusting to clear out blockages of your innate intelligence, but I'm also combining a lot of the channeling. I don't always speak the language in the office. I do sometimes. Some people, I get a download or a feeling or a channel that it's okay for. They go, yep, no, it's going to be good. You can do it. And I would say not one person has gone, oh, that was a bit weird, don't do that again. It's been
so you feel that guiding you in the way you work, or doing or not doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I get this, and I don't know if it's an intuition or I just get this feeling where I've got permission to go, full bananas or not. And so whenever I'm touching...
Do you say, can I go full bananas on you right now?
I'll go full destiny bananas. And, and it started attracting different people to the office that are much more, I was just listening to your podcast with Glenn, and he mentioned Stu Bittman, and I don't know if we can't mention Stu because he's such a massive influence on all of us, and he is just, he has this thing of, you are this beacon, and when you start shining your light with this true intention of who you really are and your authenticity, it starts attracting like-minded, or they feel this energy. So it started attracting people. Don't come to me with back pain anymore. They come to me because they want to get cleared out, and they want their innate to work, and they want to be connected. So so generally speaking, the majority of people who see me now, they're probably used to the sort of the bananas, and I'm probably
you say it, and they're drawn to it, and the people who want their calf rubbed will go somewhere else.
Absolutely.
That's beautiful, and I think that diversity in the profession is actually a good thing. I know some people think it's not, but I think we can serve so many people in different ways. and I think it's fantastic that we work at all those different levels.
Absolutely, and I think each person will connect with what they are needing at that time, and they will be drawn to to where they need to go, because we all have it in us. We all have that channeling. The thought that, you've gone out to the car and you think, oh, I've left my purse behind. That's actually not your brain, in my mind. This is your guides, or your star people, or your innate intelligence telling you, dude, you forgot your purse, you're going to need that. Well, not dude, but your wallet or whatever. Yeah. You only have a purse on a Friday, don't you, Tim?
The dude's purse, yeah. Thank you. You remembered.
But do you see what I mean? So I just feel like, and the people who, I think we're all vibrating on these certain resonances, and you will attract people on that resonance. And I'm not saying there's a better resonance or it's just a different resonance. And I think you will attract people who are on that resonance, by the way, if your intention and your authenticity is kind of shining out.
Well, with that, I think it's a great point to let people know that if you're vibing with Destiny and you're intrigued by what she's telling you, in terms of her intuition and the different elements to her practice and the way it changed her practice and how much happier she is in practice. And perhaps if you're feeling disillusioned in a more mechanistic practice and feel like you're being pulled this way, I want to let you know that Destiny will be hosting a seminar called Connect and Ascend, which will be in June. The exact date we'll put up in the show notes captions. And I'll be there to lend a hand, and we'll be doing work with Destiny. We'll be doing some breath work and a few other weird things to help you tap into our woo-woo land. And so if you have a look at those, that'll be a good time to plug the event and find out more about Destiny and the way she works.
And also, Tim doesn't just facilitate and help out, by the way. Tim is like a major pivotal part of his amazing breathwork, coaching, mentoring, and things. So don't just think it's me. It's Tim too, doing an amazing job.
Try to sneak out the back door there.
Yeah, not going to happen, mate. Tim is an absolute integral part of it, and the breathwork is amazing. And I have to say, connection gets just deeper and deeper every time I do that with Tim facilitating. So come and join us.
I think we've had some amazing shifts for people in the couple of events that we run. So it's been hugely beneficial to be part of and witness that.
Yeah, absolutely amazing.
Destiny, can you tell us a little bit about the setup of your practice and the flow within your practice? How do you facilitate? You mentioned group energy. How does that all work?
So I have a studio. It looks like organized chaos, but it's actually quite organized. I have quite strong systems, really, in case Mark Hudson is listening to this. I have these, but I have 5 tables in the middle of my room. It's quite a sort of a funky, I don't know, it's a funky atmosphere. I've got, plants everywhere. So quite a natural environment, plants everywhere. I've got 5 tables in the middle. We've got funky music. I've got nice smells. And I have beautiful people on my tables at all times, most of the time. And I connect with each and every one of them. And I kind of preempt them to leave all of their neggy, stressy 3D stuff at the door, because when they walk in, this is their time, this is their healing time. It's not for anyone else. It's not for the kids, it's not for the husband, it's not for the boss, it's not for the mother-in-law. It is absolutely their time. So they leave all their negative stuff at the door. They come in, they find their table, whichever one I kind of point to randomly. And they will just lie down, and then they start to breathe. So I've preempted just a little bit of breath work, connecting with their body. So many people are not connected with their body. We're just busy, 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 always in our kind of headspace, rather than actually staying connected with our breath and with our system. And then I'll kind of connect. I'll touch them on their back, and then I might not say anything. And I've let them know about this. I just check every single vertebra. I've been doing this for a really long time, Tim. I know exactly what vertebra should feel like what, and which one doesn't feel right. And you do too. We all of us, we must have touched thousands of spines by now. We know which ones don't feel right and which ones are feeling blocked. And before I've done that, I've called in all the star people, and I have I'm constantly sort of double checking, and they're constantly sort of, keeping my intention in there. If I feel that my brain has wandered off to what I'm having for dinner, or any sort of bit of, my car isn't working very well at the minute, but, and things like that, I stop, I disconnect from them, I drop in with myself, and then I'll reconnect. But once I'm in the flow, it doesn't happen very often. Then I will adjust whatever I need to adjust. Sometimes I'll do some energy work depending on how stressed out they feel, or if I feel like at the moment a lot of people are closed in their heart space, so we'll do a little bit of heart space clearing. A lot of people are disconnected up in the crown chakra a little bit, so just check all of that out and just do some gentle healing as well. I also do something called BGI, which is biogeometric integration, which is like an energy thing, a chiropractic energy thing based on sacred geometry. So I do that sometimes, and then I just let them relax, and I move on to the next person. And if we're all breathing and healing, it has this knock-on effect on everyone else. So if we're all thinking good thoughts, and it will amplify.
So the extra people in the room actually adds. So it's a adder, or even a multiplier.
Mm-hmm.
So that facilitates even greater change.
Absolutely. I mean, dude, they're healing before they've even made the appointment. If they've made an action, an action to think, I'm going to make an appointment with the chiropractor, they're already healing. So they can just they're healing before they've walked in, just because of that intention that they have. So if they have this,
because they're doing the healing, right?
Absolutely. It's not us. We're just the facilitators. We're the helpers. So they're already healing. They're lying there. I'm unblocking whatever needs to be unblocked, or I am helping them. They're unblocking it themselves. They're healing it themselves. So, I'm just this little helper. That's all.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned the busyness creating a disconnect with the body, and so I've heard someone talking about being disembodied. A lot of people in the industry or in the work, high level work stress, they're disembodied, sort of heads on sticks running around, and they don't even know what their bodies feel like. And so when you start connecting them, I can imagine that becoming more embodied. And you mentioned just breathing into that. Are there any other things that people can do to check in to see if they are disembodied or where they're at, and what can they do? Obviously coming to see someone like yourself, but is there anything else, other tips we can give people?
Do you know, again, listening to your podcasts, getting out in nature, I feel like a bit of an imposter syndrome being on the Natural You podcast, because I'm not the best going out to nature, walking in the woodlandy person. But I'm embarrassed to say that, actually. But if we, and I heard Glenn say it as well, if we just stop and just sit in stillness and just be, and focus on your breathing and just clear your mind, and being out in nature, if that, obviously
well, what I see is that you if you look at your practice, you've brought nature into your practice.
Yeah,
I mean, you've got more plants than anyone else I know in their practice. So I think if you're not like that, and you don't want to get dressed up in the cold and go out and have a walk and freeze your butt off, you can be in a green space, and I think that has a very similar effect. So I think you do in your way connect with nature. So that could be one thing. Is bring more nature into the home. Get some plants, look after them. There's something about tending plants or growing seeds that reconnects us to the rhythms of life and the natural processes. Like, a seed, you just need to give it some soil and some water and some sunlight, and it's going to grow. And just like things grow, it's the same way that we heal. And you don't, all the innate intelligence is in that seed already. It doesn't need a download from universal intelligence. It's already there, and that'll do its thing. And we just have to pull out the weeds and make sure that it's removed any interference, just like we're doing, and facilitating its growth. We don't grow it. We can help facilitate that by putting it in a bigger pot or putting in the right. Does it need more sun or shade? And I think the same can be said for our work. Is removing that interference, and the body will do the healing.
Have you ever watched, there's a movie that I can't actually think of the name of, so it's actually pointless going on it, but it's all about him looking after his plant. And this is the thing, if we nurtured ourselves as much as we would, as much as we tended to our plants or our garden, or, if we just gave ourselves that little bit more, treating ourselves sometimes like we're a newborn baby. We can be so harsh on ourselves. If we're not achieving enough, if we're not reaching our goals in the time that we should, if we're not being busy and doing all the, this fake busyness stuff, which actually is just all of us, like you were saying, heads on sticks, just wandering around. And if we could just stop for a moment and just think of how miraculous we are and how incredible we are, as though you were looking at this newborn baby that is just, which is the most incredible miracle of life. You are that newborn baby. You're this amazing miracle that is here. And if, and running around all day like a headless chicken, berating yourself because you haven't, done a million zillion things that you've put on your to-do list, let's just stop and just be and just breathe. I find nobody's breathing. Do you find that in your office? You touch their back and they're not breathing.
Yeah.
Or they're breathing like, really. So just, I think everyone just needs to just stop.
Yeah, I think I need to do that now.
I think it's time to do it.
That's brilliant. So as we kind of move towards the end, Destiny, I want to see if I can pull out some more of the supernatural. So I remember reading a book by Lyle Watson called Supernature. It was about supernatural phenomena, which this was in the 70s. He wrote this book, Supernatural Phenomena, which he was looking for a natural explanation for. So he called it supernature. And so would you say that rings true for you? Is the supernatural just part of nature, or is it sort of outside dictating nature? How do you envision that, or how does that represent for you?
Yeah, I think it's all of those things. So for me,
of course.
So there's no, the thing is,
paint me the picture.
It's really, really tricky because the human brain can only see things in a kind of linear kind of way. And all of it is so mixed into so many different layers. When I have the guidance, I can see, and they're here, I'm gesticulating, but you can't see it on the podcast. They're sort of on the right side of me and a little bit at the back of my head, and they are talking to me. And I have 3 or 4 little star people that come out, and I have one main one. But it is all flowing through all of us. We can't comprehend it with our human brains. It is something so far.
If you said the human brain is linear, and the supernatural is layered and multi-dimensional and flowing.
Yes. It isn't.
Would that
absolutely
help?
Yeah. So human brain is a linear right? kind of.
Was that too? Is that too linear?
But it is. Yeah, it's it's like the whole. I don't know. It's like the whole analogy of you've read the book, you understand the concept of the book. Compared to you've read a sentence. And I think the human brain is you've read a sentence. So us thinking that the human brain is that clever, I think it's probably even only a letter. Okay. It isn't even the full book or even the full volume of books of it. But, and I think we're all connected. We all have the capacity, and we are all connected. There is a collective consciousness. I think some of us are just vibrating at a level where we are not conscious of it at this point. And it might be that it won't be in this lifetime, and it might be that it might be in a different dimension. It may be that we're doing different things in different dimensions, and in this dimension you're doing more linear stuff, in another dimension you're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So have I gone too far now, Tim?
I think you're yeah, you're so the collective consciousness, the collective conscious, and I like Jung's idea of the collective unconscious. So if there's a collective conscious, there's also a collective unconscious, and so those things that drive we can. I think collective conscious we have an idea around, and we see that in other organisms, and have an idea of how that group works as individuals towards the greater good, and without any connection can communicate in a way that we don't fully understand, and that's where the collective consciousness term comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And the collective unconscious would have a similar drive, no, to the things that we've repressed or not dealt with are still there, even though we're not aware of them. So even on a personal level, those are driving some probably negative things in my life without me knowing it. And likewise for humanity. How do we tap into collective consciousness, let's say the higher consciousness? And is there a way to do that? And then what about collective unconscious? What two ways would you look at those two?
I think connecting into the collective consciousness is getting adjusted by a vitalistic chiropractor, number one. Start a meditation practice, and if for everyone who says, I can't meditate, start a breathwork practice. When you start the breathing, you start connecting, and you start feeling, you'll start seeing. And start being able to shut down the chatter, because I think a lot of people say, I can't meditate because my brain is just too overwired and all that, and too crazy. But when you're breathing, you're making this sort of conscious and understanding that you can consciously breathe, but then your body is you're not then having to consciously you could consciously take a breath in, but actually it's the breath out, which is a natural unconscious movement to do. So anyway, so I think breath work, get adjusted, breath work, meditation, start kind of investigating things. If you're curious about dreams, if you're curious about stuff, start connecting with people who are perhaps a bit more on that frequency. I think we can't have the dark without the light without the dark. So there's going to have to be some unconscious stuff that happens to send us messages and to send us what, I don't know about you, but throughout my life, I'm 51 now, and there have been things that I've done that I haven't been very proud of, but I have understood that, that feels icky to me. So there's then a moral and values. And I don't think from a we can't always just have all this amazing stuff. We have to do the work on the dark stuff too. So
on the stuff, the shadow work
stuff. So there has to be ego driven stuff that we need to process and feel like, that didn't feel well. And every time we're healing something like that, we are healing it for the collective. But we're working all the time.
And confession, and the words used in different, like confession and forgiveness for what we've done or not done, which we're not proud of. Those are kind of, and the dream work, which can be this connecting to the unconscious and subconscious realms, and looking at that, in powerful too. So those are, I think, good pointers for people. I know for meditation, for me, it really helped was Joe Dispenza's work.
Absolutely.
As a kind of scientific brain, he sort of melded the scientific and mystic really nicely. So it was a nice bridge for me. So if you're more in sort of scientific mindset or mechanistic way of thinking, then Joe Dispenza's books and tapes would be probably a good place to start to help bridge that gap between science and mysticism.
He does some good breathwork stuff, and also Wim Hof has a breathwork sort of meditation that's not very long on that's a great way to start on his website. But also there's an app called Insight Timer, which is free, and it has like 500,000 billion meditations. Some are guided, some are breath work, some inner child work. And you can just go along and just see what sort of, feels right to you if you're a beginner.
And be open to those synchronicities that'll happen.
Because obviously you're being guided. It's not really you.
Destiny, thanks so much.
In my humble opinion.
In your humble opinion.
My pleasure, Tim.
It's been great. Thank you for sharing your story and telling us how you kind of left the woo-woo closet and are now fully out. And so I'm sure and I'm hopeful that you've inspired others to perhaps take steps towards that if that's where they're being drawn. I'm going to leave Destiny's contact details in the show notes, as well as the link to the Ascend and Connect seminar. So if you want to reach out to her personally or come to the seminar, you can do that through that. So thank you, everyone, for listening into The Natural You with the wonderful Destiny.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to The Natural You. I hope you got something useful out of this episode. If you think someone might benefit from hearing this, please share it with them. Lastly, I'd love it if you hit the subscribe button and rate and review this podcast. See you next week.